So you talk a lot about how, I think you called it the 70-20-10 principle of how we learn. So the vast majority of what we learn by actually doing. And I love the way that you detail that in the book. So for somebody who wants to become a better leader, especially if they're in a company that doesn't necessarily foster that, how do they get that practice? How do they do those reps?
Well, first of all, a lot of companies don't foster leadership. They don't have a leadership environment. They'll come and say, I love your leadership principles, but I'm not a leader because I don't have the position. In fact, I wrote a book several years ago called The 360-Degree Leader. And I wrote it for that person that, kind of is in the middle, how to influence or lead people above you, beside you, and, kind of around you, that 360 idea, helping them understand that the key to leading people, even if you're not in a leadership environment, is, again, influence. So the question now comes down, then how do I influence people? And if I do influence people, how do I increase that influence? And my answer is very simple. We increase the influence with people when we intentionally add value to them on a consistent basis. Because if you think about people in your life that have a high influence on your life. They've really added a lot of value to you. And so what I share, I do a little simple formula that kind of works, and that is every day, again, consistency compounds. So you put consistency with intentionality, and you've got a powerful combination. So every day I basically do 5 things. Every day, first of all, I value people. It begins there. Because if I don't truly value people, I won't add value to them. You don't add value to people that you don't value. You don't add value to anything you don't value. So every day I value people. That's where it starts. But then every day I think of ways to add value to people. So I'll look at my calendar and I look at my agenda today and I realize I was going to be with you. And I think, well, okay, how can I add value to you? What can I do for impact theory that'll, just help? Because again, if you're constantly adding value to people, you're going to be of great value to people. So, okay, I value people, think of ways to add value to people, then I look for ways to add value to people. When I'm in the setting, I'm looking for, okay, what can I do? What can I say? But what we see is what we look for. And so if I'm looking to add value, guess what? I'll see ways to add value to it. Somebody else might be beside you, not add value at all to you. But I look for ways, and then number 4, I do things that add value to people. And then number 5, I encourage others to add value to people. And I've just lived that simple formula. I do that every day of my life. It's very simple. And I try to help other people do that, understanding that if they do that, wherever they are, leadership culture, not a leadership culture, doesn't really matter. They'll begin to influence and begin to lead people, and they'll begin to make a difference in people's lives. And I think that's essential. But I think you have to be intentional, and I think you have to be consistent. Consistency compounds. I'm 72. And I've been doing leadership for 50 years. And so when people say, well, how'd you become a leadership guru and all these things that you got? I tell them, it's just consistency.
So for those people that are learning the 360-degree leadership, they're not necessarily somewhere that's making these opportunities readily available for them. Other than just adding value, where can they go to learn? What are principles of leadership that they should be taking in this sort of abstract learning that they can then apply?
Well, I think that there are several things. First of all, in the beginning, I couldn't find anybody to mentor me in leadership. They didn't know who I was. And so books became my mentors. And then I did something that I just encourage everybody to do. I've done this for 40 years. Is I began to have what I call learning lunches. And I loved it in your green room, your statement on learning. I just love it. But I would go out, I would take somebody like you, Tom, out, and I'd buy the lunch. I didn't even eat, I just had questions. And I would ask you leadership questions. And I would...
What are some of your go-to leadership questions?
Well, the first question is, I always look at somebody and I ask them, tell me about your greatest failure. And the reason I ask that is because I think that the character of a person comes out of their failures, not out of their success. And I think that the bedrock part of foundation of leadership is character. And you build on it. And so I want to know about, tell me about a mess up in your life. And I've had so many of them. I mean, when people ask me that question, it's kind of like, which one do I pull out? But I really like to talk to people about their losses, because it just really tells me a lot about who the person really is. I'm not sure success does, but I know failure does. So I ask that. I ask one of the questions I ask them is, who do you know that I should know? And that's led me to meet some incredible people in my life that somebody else opened the door that I wouldn't have had. So I just find that in asking questions, in fact, I wrote a book one time, Good Leaders Ask Great Questions. I just find in asking questions, that's the way that I can grow and develop myself the best. And I tell leaders all the time that before you lead people, you got to find them. And I think this is a big miss in leadership. We just assume people are already on our page, and so we just start leading, and we've never found them. And so I think there's a finding, and then these.
Give me a little more detail on that. So you're talking about finding what they want, what they like,
yeah,
what's important to them.
Find out who they are. The expression, Tom, it's lonely at the top. Now, that's not a leadership expression, although people say it all the time in the context of leadership. In fact, I tell people all the time, if you're lonely at the top, it's not a leadership issue, it's just the fact you're dysfunctional. But if you think about it, if you're lonely at the top, no one's with you, no one's following you. I mean, that's a hiker, not a leader. And I think one of the things that leaders need to do, one of the first things is they need to get off the top.
That's interesting. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think that if I'm the leader, I don't ask you to come to where I am. I go to where you are. I get on your ground, because people are more secure in the areas that they're comfortable. And so I always go to where they live and who they are, and begin a relationship with them, and ask questions and get to know them. Just get to know them, because managers try to lead everybody the same, whereas leaders understand that you lead everyone differently. You lead them according to their temperament, according to their passion, according to their giftedness. I mean, there are about a dozen things that you lead them according that is unique to every individual. And so the only way I can lead you correctly, Tom, is to know you. So I know what you care about, and I know what you value. And the moment I do that, then I put all my leadership with you in context of who you are, not who I am. So finding people really means to intentionally value them and show that you value them by learning about them and getting to know them and then you lead them with their best interest in mind, which is a beautiful way to lead people.